Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the Lockdown Podcast. Continuing to pick apart Raw, SmackDown, rumors, all that kerfuffle. So there's a lot going on right now, just in the sense of there's like storylines that are kind of making a full circle. There's wrestlers coming back. Basically people on like legend contracts that just show up every so often. So we had Raw kickoff with Bailey coming out and doing whatever, or not Bailey, Becky, sorry. Had Becky come out and, basically chitter chattering as she does. And then obviously before the show, obviously they do the background stuff of people walking in, which I think is stupid because then it tells us who's there. But so we get the emergence of AJ Lee, and we get this whole back and forth between Becky and AJ Lee, and obviously AJ Lee dupes Becky into basically putting her title up at Elimination Chamber, which I think at least it's a change up from the same like 3 to 4 people that they've had been going back and forth with the Women's Intercontinental. So I mean it's definitely a good change up. Now, so the Alpha Academy weeks back won a tag team. I think it was a fatal 4-way, and basically got the the opportunity to face the Usos. And we get that match last week, and it really sucks that they essentially just buried Otis and Akira Tozawa. And I don't know why, but it's like, you had the other 3 tag teams that were in that Fatal 4-way, which would have made more sense. But I mean, I guess whatever. I mean, Alpha Academy is kind of really just very lower mid card. And it's unfortunate because I honestly miss Heavy Machinery. Like I miss Tucker and Otis and Heavy Machinery. I thought that was a great tag team, and then obviously I don't know if it was Tucker like got injured or he just got flat out released. But but it kind of sucks because I feel like that was a good established tag team that had come up from NXT and gotten to the main roster. And I really feel like since that's been broken up, I mean when Alpha Academy had Chad Gable and all that hoopla, I mean it was okay, but it's like now I feel like you have Tozawa, who again we've talked about before, like if you had the 205 live, he'd be successful, but they don't really have that. And so they're just kind of floundering, in the lower mid card. And, the Usos obviously are the Usos. So obviously, they get the win with, very little nonsense. I mean, with the exception of a couple little, we shouldn't call them botches. We should just call them match blunders. or like oops a daisies or whoops, because I feel like if you say botch in professional wrestling, they just want to punch you. So because it's one take, it's not oh hold on, let's redo this. No. So the week prior, obviously Raquel had a championship match against Stephanie Vecchia where she basically told them to stay out of it. And, we didn't get much like conversation between Liv and Raquel because I feel like Raquel should be very pissed off that she told everybody to stay in back and they didn't listen. At least Liv and Dominic. I feel like Finn's really not been a factor in much Judgment Day business, which, again, I hope this leads us to, the exit of Judgment Day. But yeah, and then, you get the exchange between Stephanie and speaking in Spanish to Dom, and then Dom responds in Spanish and all that crap. I don't like that.
Why not?
I I I mean, you can speak English. I know it's a second language, and I mean, it just feels like we're dealing with the Asuka stuff again, right? Where like Asuka still to this day still screams shit in Japanese, or and we have no idea until someone actually translates what they actually said.
You know,
But
I gotta push back on it. I don't have a problem with that. I think it actually adds more drama, and it's even more inclusive to the global audience of WWE.
yeah,
Yeah, they have an entire Mexican promotion, that is Spanish speaking.
yeah,
So for them to like cut a promo in Spanish, it really brings it all home and all together for everyone in the WWE universe. And now if the WWE universe wanted to say like put like subtitles on the screen when they're
right.
speaking in Spanish, maybe that could be a fun little gesture. But for them
Well,
not
and
to,
they,
for them
yeah,
to only speak Spanish, it's kind of like, or only speak English when they are bilingual, I think is
well, and
I
they
don't
sound
think
more
it.
genuine. They sound more
Yeah.
genuine in their native language. Is kind of what you're
Yeah.
getting at.
And you know what? I know for a fact that when we both get upset about something, we like, not to say that we're bilingual, but we will both use very colorful language, and that might not be like the best the best take for either one of us. But I
Yeah,
really think being able to communicate to a global audience in more than just one language only makes the product that much more reachable and
right.
obtainable for everyone else. So that's my
Yeah,
pushback.
yeah. I mean, I think that honestly kind of makes sense. And obviously, like you have you know, like there's multiple literally nationalities at pretty much any WWE show you go to. So I guess
Mhm.
there was probably some people in the things are like, "Damn, y'all just had no idea what she said," but like, you
Right.
know,
Yeah, and
and so
yeah,
maybe there's probably like 15, 20 people in the crowd being like, "Damn, oh," like,
yep,
and the
exactly.
rest of us are kind of like, "Well, she really sounds convincing of whatever she's saying." Like,
Yeah.
you can gauge the tone, you know. So I mean, yeah, I guess it works. So now the next match of the night, we had one of the women's qualifier matches for the Chamber
Mhm.
between Rhea Ripley, Lyra Valkyria, and Ivy Nile. And I mean, we're gonna touch on this later, but I kind of want to at least glaze over a little bit. Is that you know why why is it you basically you bury Lyra, you bury Ivy, and and you already have Rhea Ripley obviously thriving in the tag division, and it's like you just it's basically a squash match, unfortunately. And it kind of sucks because Ivy Nile, like, she's a good wrestler, she's a good performer, and she's strong as all get out, and so she has all the intangibles of someone who could make it far if given the right opportunity and the right creative
Mhm.
direction. The same thing with Lyra. I mean, Lyra's she's kind of over. I mean, like her entrance, it's starting to catch on a little bit, but I mean, Rhea's hits and it just drowns out anybody else.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
and and it's unfortunate that it's you have talent that again work their ass off. I mean, and don't really get much in return, but I guess
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean,
Yep. They're gonna
um,
keep doing what they do.
yeah. So now we had a segment between Michael Cole kind of interviewing CM Punk, and obviously gets interrupted by Finn Balor. And I like this, setup. I think, there's a lot of validity to what Finn's saying. There's a lot of validity to what CM Punk was saying. And so obviously we're gonna get, a run back, on an actual PLE versus just a Raw. So I think it's gonna be a lot more intense, for CM Punk to face Finn Balor. And honestly, like, we all kind of know how it's gonna go, but it'd be nice once in a great freaking while to maybe be surprised by something. But it's unfortunate that WWE has become very predictable on how things play out. And but it is nice every so often that we kind of get a twist or a swerve
Right.
in a storyline. So, and we'll see what becomes of it. Obviously, elimination chambers obviously still 2 weeks away. So I mean, there's a lot to at least build to the match. Um, and I like when they give a little more time for to let things fester and let things build towards a match, versus just quick booking it and just, oh, here we are. And so I like that. At least with them running it back, at least there's time to build, over the next 2 weeks. So
Right.
so we've had kind of the I guess heel version, I guess, of Natty, aka Natalia, all that, and so we had the spat, weeks back between her and Maxine Dupree. And so
Mhm.
we get, who basically, Natty basically helped train Maxine Dupree, and obviously Natty in the end obviously kind of gave her the thumbs down, I guess. And so we got the match, and I mean, it was just brutal for the get. I mean, I like this Natty. I like, this Natalia. I like the brutal, the entitled, and I'm glad they finally did it, and it was kind of cool that they did it at the Royal Rumble. Um, and so obviously Maxine, ends in a double count out just because obviously Natty didn't care. Um, Now we get to the highlight of all highlights, and we had Javon Evans and the original El Grande Americano versus the Los Americanos. And if you have not looked it up or seen it scrolling across TikTok, Instagram, wherever, look it up. And so we had, a pretty crazy match, and then at basically the tail end of it, we see, I don't know, I don't care who it was. I think it was Bravo, I think. Yeah, because Bravo's blue and Ryo's red. And goes to do an off the top move, and Javon Evans goes from the other corner and
Mhm.
literally jumps and hit him with an OG cutter. Something that Randy Orton has made famous. To many wrestlers. Getting the off the rope into an RKO, but like, this wasn't just him standing and like modifying how the wrestler fell down. This was
Mhm.
literally him jumping like, halfway across the ring to hit. Honestly, if this doesn't get a slammy, like, I don't know. I don't know what else you would give it to. And I mean, just hit him with the most insane OG cutter, that would make Randy Orton blush. Okay, like, so if you haven't looked at it, please do. And
Well, I will take a look for that right now.
oh man, yeah, I mean, just literally just YouTube Javon Evans, Ryo, or Bravo OG cutter. But so our next and our final match of the night was a triple threat between LA Knight, Penta, and Austin Theory. And I mean, it pretty much was going just about what you would expect for this matchup and this triple threat. And we see the emergence again of this masked man that basically has it out for the Vision, and I this is boring because we all know that most likely, probably 70% sure, they're gonna all of a sudden, figure out who this person is. Let's say at Elimination Chamber, maybe, or maybe on a Raw in a couple weeks or something, or whatever. And they're basically angling it to the point where like oh, we have no idea who this is, and they're doing the same thing Austin Theory did with the curb stomp and all that crap, and it's gonna end. They're basically it's gonna end up being Seth Rollins. Now, the person playing it right now is most likely Grayson Waller, and you don't see him on TV much anymore. You don't really see him with the New Day, any of that nonsense, and it kind of fits. Now, whether they when they reveal this, whoever this masked man is or woman, is it's gonna be who they want it to be, but they're just milking the clock right now. Because they released it a lot. They revealed the person a lot quicker when it was Austin Theory than they've done with this person. So LA Knight does obviously get the dub. Much help to the masked man. So man. So we get Tiffany Stratton coming out and basically starting off the show with basically, I'm going to, I came to, get back my title, yada, yada. And then you get the emergence of Lash Legend and Nia Jax, and just, I don't like their promos.
Yeah.
I'm just not, it's really mundane. It's very Def Rebel, like basic, nothing really to it. And so yeah, and then we end up obviously getting a match between. So this basically was leading us into this was leading us obviously in, like they do, to the first night of the match of the night, was Rhea Ripley and Io Sky being the tag team champions versus Nia Jax and Lash Legend. And apparently they're listed. I don't recall them saying their name, but like they are called the Irresistible Forces, apparently is what they're calling them. I don't recall them saying that name, but I mean, I think it's a pretty valid name.
Yep.
So we were gonna get another Carmelo Hayes United States Open Challenge match, which ends up with the MFTs basically getting involved. They never started the match, and then you get Matt Cardona came out, Shinsuke came out, blah blah blah, and so we ended up getting an MFTs versus Carmelo Hayes, Dragunov, Shinsuke, Apollo Crews. Yeah, he's still back. And Matt Cardona, and obviously the MFTs just destroy them. I mean, Tala Tonga is a whole mountain of a man. And but like there's a little bit of, like, before they they had the whole segment and the whole fight and everything, there was some words that got exchanged about them saying that MFTs didn't have your back against have your back at the Randy Orton match, and you kind of see Solo kind of shrug a little bit. Now I don't know how valid like any big twist to it, because I think really Solo Sikoa doesn't exist as an independent wrestler. Like, I feel like he functions best in a group, just because really, with the exception of his brief time in NXT, he's really just been in groups. And whether he's just sitting there with his arms crossed or he's cutting goofy ass promos, I don't see him going solo, pun intended. But
Yeah.
so we get another qualifier match for Elimination Chamber. On the women's side, we had Alexa Bliss versus Julia and Zelina. And man, I don't like Zelina Vega because she's unsafe. You know, she went away for a hot second, you know, because of a numerous botches in the matches, you know, late last year, and they kind of had her sift away, and then now she's back, and she's back to not protecting her opponents. And she basically did her little code red type move, but didn't get high up enough and flat out dropped Julia on her freaking head. And you know, the refs were quick, you know, to check on her and everything, because, you know, I mean, sometimes it looks worse than it is, but like there was people all over the internet literally like slow mowing it, and it looked bad. But all in all, obviously Alexa Bliss gets the dub, and again, this is pretty much another one of those situations where you pretty much already know who's going to win it.
Yeah.
So, but so we get so weeks ago, obviously you had the backstage thing between Trick and Ray Phoenix. So this is the match we got, and honestly, it was a pretty solid match, and I like that they're not holding back on pushing Trick Williams. You know, I think, you know, for as long as I've watched him, you know, in his career in WWE, I mean, he has it, right? Like, I mean, there's, you know, you have wrestlers in NXT that are still there and have been there, and there's been, you know, a dozen, 2 dozen wrestlers that have moved that came after them and left before them. And you know, it's good to see that, you know, his hard work is paying off, and obviously Trick does get the win against Ray Phoenix, which, I mean, I could have gone either way on that, but obviously, like I said, they're pushing Trick and the Lemon Pepper Steppers. So we finally actually get a championship match from Jade Cargill. It only took, you know, X amount of days. And someone actually online made the actual thing, and they made a lot of sense, and they literally said, we're getting on Jade about her stuff, but what about Dominic, right? But at least Dominic was out with this, you know, supposedly injury or whatever else, so his stuff made a little more sense. But like Jade's just been consistently on TV, not even, you know, just being a mouthpiece and not, you know, actually putting her, you know, her money where her mouth is. So,
You know,
so
at this
you know,
particular point, I blame creative for those decisions. And again, I'm sure we have seen that same recipe or behavior from WWE with other world champions. So I'm not. It's. I don't think it has anything to do with the performer. I think it has everything to do with how they want her to be perceived and creative. It's part of their character building that they do. It's the same tropes over and over again.
Yeah, it's, you know, one of these days we should go down and just like do an episode that has nothing to do with Raw or SmackDown and just go freaking trope central.
Yeah, and see,
Like-
you know, and try to learn the patterns. Yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean, and really just it'd be like season 5, episode 3-5, like
Yeah.
like 0.5. We'll do in between episodes, like when they did Jackass.
Yep.
Jackass 3.5. But I mean, Jordan put up a good match. I mean, I don't take anything away from her. Obviously, they're, you know, they're still holding out for, you know, Bianca Belair to face Jade Cargill. I mean, it's, if it was any more obvious, you know, it would we'd run into a brick wall. Because I mean, that's literally what they're waiting for. Because I mean, that's the true, actual, like, rivalry. And so, they're biding their time slowly but
Mhm.
surely for her to get back. Now, speaking of predictable, so we get the triple threat between Cody Rhodes, Jacob Fatu, and Sami Zayn for a qualifier spot for the Elimination Chamber. And I mean, wow, Cody won. Wow.
I did,
Like I
I didn't care for how I didn't
no,
care
I
for Cody winning, but how Cody won is interesting because we've all been clamoring at some particular point for us to get heel Cody, and this is a way we can start getting heel Cody. Um,
yeah, it's to the point where he could give two shits about sportsmanship and he just wants to win. And
yeah, I mean,
that's
and
that's
if
always
that's
that's literally always the first step to a heel turn.
yeah, and if that's what it takes for us to get heel Cody, black hair heel Cody, uh, all right, this is one step. Let him have a temper tantrum when he doesn't win elimination chamber, and yeah, let's go.
We'll
Let's
get
go.
we'll get Cody McIntyre.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously this coming week we have some more elimination chamber qualifiers. We have on Raw we have Gunther versus Javon Evans versus Dominic Mysterio. Um, I honestly think Javon Evans is gonna get this. I think Gunther he's got more singles booking that he could do that has nothing to do with championships. So, and then we have Bailey versus Asuka versus Natty. Definitely leaning towards Natty winning that. Um,
That would be nice.
I think Natty's definitely due for a championship run. I think that she's the longest tenure on the women's roster without a doubt. So, I think she's due at least for the opportunity. And then on SmackDown's going to be fun. Like we have an elimination chamber qualifier match between Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, and Damian Priest. And that is going to be crazy just because I want to see Trick and Hayes run it back. Like I loved them in NXT. Like they were just such a fun, duo. And then
Mhm.
obviously when Carmelo obviously moved on, and then Trick had his time to shine and he did a fantastic job. And and so now essentially you have like Damian Priest in kind of the middle of this long-term story booking, we'll call it, to face off between Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams. So but honestly, out of that, it's Carmelo's not winning, Trick's not winning. I'm definitely leaning more towards Damian. He's kind of been um kind of forgotten for a while. And so I feel like this is a good time to get him back in the game.
I wouldn't be surprised if Trick wins, just because just to have a showcase for him. Now,
Right.
is he going to win Elimination Chamber? Probably not.
Yeah. But
But
I think it'd be a
yeah.
cool time to see some new stars shining, in the
Mhm.
elimination chamber. So,
Yeah.
And like I said, whether they win or they lose, they still win, right? Just
Mhm.
because you get that shine and you get that rub and and they're young. So it's like they have plenty of time to develop and everything else. So I look forward to that one specifically. And on the flip side, you have Charlotte Flair versus Nia Jax versus Kiana James.
Mhm.
And I mean, if it wasn't written in the stars, we know Charlotte's going to win this just because that sets up Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair being in the same match. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't think Kiana James is doing anything with that. She's kind of been more of a background character. I mean, and I wouldn't be mad if Nia Jax won either, though. I mean, just because then you would see all of a sudden everybody gang up on her, and then like, they do what they do with the bigger wrestlers, and it's like, 3, 4 of them jump on each other and pin her 1, 2, 3, which is again trope. So yeah, and then obviously we get to see Oba Femi destroy Kit Wilson again. So
which will probably be a joy.
Yeah, if you haven't seen R-Truth's poem, definitely worth looking up. Yeah, so I mean, basically, your Elimination Chamber currently right now is CM Punk versus Finn Balor, Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee, and then obviously we only have 3 on each side. We have Randy, we have Cody, and LA Knight on the men's side. We have Tiffany Stratton, Alexa Bliss, and Rhea Ripley on the other. And so yeah, I have actually literally done all that in an appropriate time, because I said about 30 minutes, and we're at 30 minutes. So I'm efficient.
Yes.
So what I wanted to get to this week specifically, just because there's a lot to talk about each one of these. So, we're back with the Are You In or Out segment, and I love this because it basically gives us more time to just really chirp on whatever, and whatever with the Raw and SmackDown minor stuff. Like I want to get to like the meat and potatoes. And so this is my first one. And are you in or out on putting current singles or tag team champions in chamber matches?
As long as they're not world champions, yes. So like, I don't want to see CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in the Elimination Chamber. They could be defending their championships on the show as opposed to being in the Elimination Chamber. But if you're the US and Intercontinental champions, yep, go for it. And you're in that to tell a story, because who you're telling a story with is also in that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Absolutely. There should not be a reason why singles champions should not be in Elimination Chambers or Royal Rumbles or anything like that, except for defending your championship. So
yeah. So my rebuttal to that is I say no.
All right.
And I say no because when you're, especially Elimination Chamber, right? Specifically, some other ones you might be able to get away with it, but like the Royal Rumble is whatever. That's just everybody kind of doing things, whatever. But like, when you're on the precipice of the next PLE after Elimination Chamber is WrestleMania, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're at WrestleMania, like I feel like every title, period, should be defended, at least if they have a good storyline, right? And I don't mind, they've done it for a while where they do the tag team things like the night before a PLE or something, but like for WrestleMania being 2 nights, I feel like every title could feasibly be defended, right? Because you have the 4 men and women's championships, the top tier. You have 4 secondary, and you have, so what is that? 4, 8. So and then you have the women's tag team, right? So, and the men's tag team on Raw and SmackDown. So essentially you have like essentially like 11 championships, right? And they normally do about 14 matches, maybe 15 between the 2 nights. And like I said, like if you don't have proper storylines, go ahead, put that shit on Raw or SmackDown. I'm not going to be mad about it. But, when you do have compelling stories, to be at WrestleMania, to be the show of shows, I feel like you should be in your own individual disputes for your championship. Like, create good storylines, for Carmelo Hayes. Create good storylines for the women's Intercontinental, the men's Intercontinental, the men's United. Like really build these stories up to the point where like you might have a triple threat or a fatal 4-way for your championships, and spend that time building those championships, and in building those secondary people around those championships, so then you have something to offer at WrestleMania. Now, like I said, I don't mind if it's the Royal Rumble, because that's just a show for everyone, right? Other than the champions, unless you're Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns. But like, so I kind of on the fence. Now, my next thing is, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but are you in or are you out on the masked man's validity to the current storyline that he's in?
So I'm guessing that you're implying that is the person behind the mask an active WWE wrestler that's not injured, or that they actually have a connection to the ongoing story.
Yes. So like, does their involvement in the feud with the Vision, other than basically flat out being, if it's it's probably not Seth Rollins right now, but down the road they're going to present it as that. But for all intents and purposes, if it's not Seth Rollins, this is a big if. If it's not, is there a person that really has too much of a grievance with the Vision? I mean, a lot of the roster does, but like, would they go to the extent of being this masked character? I'm just kind of out on it. Like, I think it's, like I said before, like I said earlier, like it's taken them longer to do this because it's someone they want that's not active right now. So
I am going to say
don't hurt your brain.
Too late. I'm going to say, for the sake of this, it could go either way. Like,
Right.
you're implying that this could be a setup for Seth Rollins returning, right? This could be, a way back. But I also think if this masked person keeps attacking Austin Creed, not Austin Creed, I'm sorry, Austin Theory. Keeps attacking Austin Theory, then it's Grayson Waller. Those two could have
yes.
issues.
Because if it's revealed as Austin Theory, that does make a lot of sense, because that's kind of been predicted, because like I said before, he's kind of been really off TV or off any kind of anything. So like, and really, yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, there's only been really messing with Austin Theory. He's not really messing with anybody else.
Yeah, no.
So,
and if he's consistently attacking them, and it could trickle back to like the New Day, getting in Grayson Waller's ear, and then attacking Austin Theory, and still being part of the New Day, and going that route. I mean, we could have something interesting. But for them to do something to drag out Seth Rollins returning, I wouldn't put it past them. Not at all. Not in the least bit. They need new ways to keep people engaged with the product. So it could go either way. So I'm going to say,
if the story's right, you're in.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm in either way. I'm in. Let's see how long they keep this mask person going on.
All right. Well, and again, I touched on this a little bit, but are you in or out on these absolutely predictable outcomes versus surprises? Because they're feeding us vanilla pudding and they're not putting anything to it. Where we're getting the predictable people in Elimination Chamber, we're getting the predictable everything. Like I'm like saying predictable outcomes and just a lot of things recently, like as a general covering of the shows, like
Mm-hmm.
is creative just really just going with the safe plateau, Def Rebel kind of creative, versus presenting us with something different. Like
They
if Ivy Nile would have won the elimination chamber qualifying match, I would have been out of my seat, like hip hip hooray.
right,
But
something
you
different.
know,
You know, I think this is what it's like to be a long-term WWE fan. You you start to see the patterns. You start to understand or start to get really good at guessing what they're going to do. And nine times out of 10 you're right. You know, but you're in it to watch your favorites and you want to see what kind of things that they get in and get out of. Um is it good to have some surprises? Yeah. I mean, Drew McIntyre winning the Undisputed Championship on SmackDown. Yeah, that's good for business. Um, you know, seeing what happens next, it makes you want to see what happens next, rather. That was the thought. Uh the predictability comes and goes. Sometimes they were right, sometimes they were wrong. Um, but guessing what they do next is not why I watch it or not why I'm engaged with the product. I
mhm.
literally want to see um I just want to see good entertainment in professional wrestling. And I think where I'm having a lot of problems with WWE is that it is predictable. It is going to be like, well, they can't give it to this person because they just showed up and, you know, they're not going
Yeah,
to push this person immediately. They've got to rebuild them for a larger audience.
yeah,
Um, so, but we
yeah.
could be completely wrong. I mean, like we were saying, like Trick
Well,
Williams being in the
yeah,
elimination chamber. Yeah, what if he does get in the elimination chamber? That would be
yeah.
completely different. So,
And I be think like in the problem is that when he's like Trick's over, like he's way over, like he's over faster than fucking anybody in the last 10 years. The dude showed up in fucking Europe and got pop. Like that's not like that is authentic. That is just something on a different level. And again it goes to show you that entrance music matters. And his music is basically a render of Kendrick Lamar's song Family Ties. And so that's what he wanted, that's what he got. And and just to kind of, a mild rabbit trail, just a smidge one. But like the music that they have for entrance music nowadays, with the exception of the veterans, is all shit. Like, they screwed up and changed Stephanie Vacquer's music, which she's mad about, we're mad about, and millions of other fans are mad about. And it's just like, why change a good thing? Why not? We're getting like great entrance music that it was personable to her because it's
mhm.
something she's had for her career. Why just change it? Like,
So I let me interject here, and I think the reason why a lot of times music gets changed is licensing. When WWE has these contracts with these music producers to produce these things, there may be some behind the scenes stuff, blah blah blah, legal stuff that they can have it for a short time, or that as long as they're under contract with the WWE, they can use this music, blah blah blah. um Yeah, it's unfortunate when you get attached to something and you don't hear it anymore, or it has to get changed for legal reasons or whatever have you. So I'm like, you know, some things are, are really catchy. Like I like Shinsuke's music. I like Finn Balor's original
Yeah,
theme. I like, I like lot of some of the lot of music. I liked, I it's what I
yeah,
like, and probably some of them like it too. But if there's legal reasons why they've got to
yeah,
change it,
yeah.
I mean, what? Who's going to pay that fine? You?
Right. I mean,
I
well, I
mean,
mean, well, the thing
yeah.
is they could re-render a little bit,
I mean, but
and
even then, it's
and
like, if
it's still not the same.
yeah,
Like,
like, do I want to see Natalia come out to like, Bret Hart's Heart Foundation music when she's got this new persona Natty? No, I wanted to have some new music. I want her to have some new Titantron stuff. I want it to be new packaging. I want her to grow. I
yeah,
want her to evolve. And unfortunately, I think the Bret Hart Foundation song is outdated. I don't think it
yeah.
it
I
it,
mean,
it
it
works
will
for her.
yeah, I mean, it still hits just because obviously she's part of that family,
Hmm.
and so, like, it's, you know and it like, if it's due to character change, that's understandable, but just I'm talking, like, there's literally nothing that changed, in Stephanie's repertoire of, her character. They just ripped and changed the music. I mean,
That
and
I
why
would I would 100% say like, hey, that wasn't that wasn't her decision.
Yeah,
Um that was WWE or TKO legal. That was over her
yeah,
head. That was probably over Triple H's head.
yeah.
Whatever it was. I mean, you
Well, and I
know,
I hope they release something that at least gives us a little bit of comfort, you
right.
know? But it's just like, if you don't give the fans if you're gonna do this stupid WWE Unreal whatever bullshit, like, then at least be able to have enough balls to just straight out tell us, like, "Hey, this is what happened."
You know
They
what?
won't,
And
and they probably won't, but,
yeah,
like,
they won't, and it'll be
it's
years before anyone like knows exactly the reason why. Stephanie's music, for example, Stephanie's music got changed. AJ's music got changed because he didn't like the crap. Um, or I think the original story is that AJ's "They Don't Want None" song was originally scheduled for another wrestler that they had almost got close to signing, but he had to back out of the contract.
yeah,
And then they gave it to, AJ Styles. And that's
yeah,
what we've
I mean,
gotten for the last 10 years. But
yeah,
you know,
but, like, that DMX, like, for, AJ Styles, it's a fire song.
right.
Like, I mean, and so
I
RIP to DMX, but, like,
yeah,
your music lives on, man. Because
yep.
I mean, when
You
that
know what?
music
And
hits, it's
then,
just
then it's like, licensing. How do they,
yeah,
keep that? Like I know you mentioned Def Rebel a couple of times, it's like, I don't know how much or what themes that they produced, but if they didn't acquire the licensing, the long-term licensings, or outright
yeah,
bought the music from those producers, of course
mhm,
they're going to keep, of course they're going to get changed. I'm not
yeah.
surprised Randy Orton hasn't had to change his music. Um,
He's had his for at least 15 years.
yeah, I think he's had a couple,
He's had,
but
like, 3, I
I
think.
don't know why Stephanie's was changed. And if anybody wants to like let us know, you can definitely do that. Uh I'm
Yeah,
gonna do just do a really quick just search and see why it was changed.
yeah,
See what the internet says.
yeah, but yeah, so while you're kinda fiddling with that, the basically the last thing, is honestly kind of pretty straightforward, but, are you in or are you out on are we gonna see Brock Lesnar and Obafemi, or will we see Gunther and Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania? It's kinda it's pretty much I wouldn't say in or out, but I would say, like, which one do you think is more likely to happen?
I can see Obafemi at WrestleMania in a more authentic way than Brock Lesnar. I
Yeah,
do think it's weird that Brock Lesnar is around, even though there's still that
Janelle
there
Grant.
is still that
Yeah, it will, and that's the thing too is like
things going on out
that's
there.
where it kind of makes it interesting, just because like
Yeah.
or what if we just see freaking Obafemi versus Gunther? I mean, I wouldn't be mad at any rendition of, as long as I see Obafemi and as long as I see Gunther, like I'm straight. But yeah, I mean, and then card is subject to change, right? So
Yep.
we'll see what happens, and did you look up anything? Any information about the whole?
Um no, I couldn't find anything outside of the person who originally wrote it, um, making his comments and yeah. So I would not be surprised if the way it's looking that it might not be a legal issue, it might be a creative issue.
Yeah.
And if so, then you can go ahead and blame head of,
Well,
creative.
we'll blame the whole boardroom that's on creative, because
Yeah.
like I said last
So
week,
yeah.
it's by releasing WWE Unreal, now we have more than one finger to point. It's like
Yeah,
this,
which is either
it's like
good
their own.
or bad,
It's like they're setting up for their own demise. Like
you know?
now that you've showed us who's all back there doing this, now you're gonna get people riled up and be like, oh, so it's not just Triple H that sucks, you know. Like,
Yeah.
and like I said, we don't know, that Unreal didn't show anything about TKO involvement either. So we really truly don't. I mean, we have a handful of people to blame just because of what they showed, but they're
Mhm.
probably, like you said, TKO is the overall. So like, this could be just something trickling down and them saying, okay, here's your options. So, but
Yeah.
we'll wait and see. We'll see what, Monday brings with the qualifiers. We'll see what Friday brings with the qualifiers. And I hope that at the very least, Obafemi is at WrestleMania doing something.
Yeah.
I would love to see a WrestleMania United States Open Challenge, and maybe us getting a return that no one expected. Maybe we get that surprise, because I think that'd be exciting.
Mhm.
To just flat out do an open challenge and have whoever show up. So, but we'll put a pin in this as we do. And, we'll be back next week to continue to break down what we have seen, what we have heard. And yeah, we'll go from there. This is the Lockdown Podcast. Peace.